Breaking news from the underbelly of fractured city. In the shadow of the derelict oil rigs that scar the horizon like forgotten gods, a lone security guard has been found catatonic atop the tallest slum tenement, overlooking the sprawling homeless camp known as the Pit. Authorities report no signs of foul play, but whispers among the displaced speak of a ghost who never sleeps, a figure tied to the recent digital sabotage of Apex Fracking's operations. The company, helmed by non-binary executive Riley Voss, denies any connection to the growing unrest in the slums. Voss, 31, ascended to power after a controversial merger that displaced thousands, their asexuality a rumored shield against personal scandals. As environmental protests swell, one question lingers. Is this the spark of revolution, or just another fall from grace? Stay tuned as idealistic journalist Lena Reyes digs deeper. This is FCN News, where the truth melts like wax under the sun. Elias Thorne stared out from the rooftop, the city a smeared canvas of neon rot and rusting metal below. Numbness cloaked him like the fog rolling off the polluted river, thick with the chemical tang of fracking runoff. He hadn't slept in days, weeks, really, his transgender body a wired machine fueled by black market hormones and unyielding rage. At 28, he was a ghost in his own skin, patrolling the night shifts at a derelict warehouse on the slum's edge. But tonight, at the moment of triumph, as Riley Voss's empire crumbled in hacked code and digital flames, Elias felt nothing. No catharsis, just the hollow echo of wings melting. The wind carried the stench of the pit, the homeless camp sprawling like a wound at the city's feet. Acrid smoke from barrel fires mixed with the sour rot of unwashed bodies and discarded fracking waste, the metallic bite of rusting tents patched with oil-stained tarp stinging his nostrils. Elias's fingers twitched on the drone controller in his lap, its camera feed still looping the destruction he'd unleashed. Voss's servers, breached and burned. But triumph? It tasted like ash, bitter and fleeting, leaving him emptier than before. 2 years earlier, in the dim flicker of a slum apartment that reeked of damp concrete and cheap soy rations, Elias, then Eliza, pre-transition, her body a cage of dysphoria, cradled Whiskers, the scruffy alley cat that had become her anchor. The pet was more than fur and claws, it was a symbol of fragile stability in a world that fracked the earth dry and left people like her, trans, broke, invisible, in the cracks. Whiskers purred against her chest, a warm vibration cutting through the insomnia that had plagued her since the hormones began reshaping her form, one painful injection at a time. Riley Voss had entered her life like a shadow myth, non-binary and sharp-edged, their asexuality a cool detachment that masked something predatory. They were 29 then, a rising fracker for Apex, drilling into the earth with hydraulic fury, poisoning wells and displacing families. Elias worked security at one of their sites, a gig that paid in scraps, barely enough to keep the lights on. Voss noticed her, or rather, noticed Whiskers, the cat she'd sneaked to work for company during those endless, sleepless nights when the world felt like it was closing in. "You keep that thing around like it's family," Voss had said one evening, their voice flat, laced with the clipped dialect of corporate climbers who'd clawed from the slums themselves. There was envy in those words, perhaps, for a bond they claimed not to need. Asexual, Voss called it, but Elias sensed the lie, a void filled with control, a hunger for power that devoured everything in its path. The original sin unfolded in visceral horror. Elias returned from a shift to find her door ajar, the apartment's stale air thick with the metallic scent of blood and something charred, like meat left too long on a fire. Whiskers was gone, no, not gone. Pieces of him scattered, formatted in crimson on the counter, bones cracked and gnawed, the oven still warm with the greasy residue of a meal that turned her stomach. Voss sat there, wiping their mouth with a napkin, eyes empty as fracked earth, devoid of remorse. "You ate him?" Elias's voice cracked, the world tilting like Icarus's plummet from the sky, wings dissolving in the sun's unforgiving heat. Voss shrugged, their non-binary poise unbroken. Resources are scarce in the slums. It was efficient. Besides, pets are illusions of attachment. I did you a favor, freed you from weakness. The words hung in the air, heavy with subtext, a twisted justification that hid Voss's own fractures. The betrayal seared, a hubris that echoed mythological falls, Voss as deadless, crafting wings of destruction, Elias as the sun doomed to crash into the sea. But it was more. Voss had known Whiskers was her lifeline amid the identity crisis brewing, the gnawing doubt about her gender, the insomnia that kept her from dreaming of a true self. Eating the pet wasn't just cruelty, it was erasure, a strike at her fragile humanity in a city that fracked souls as easily as soil, leaving behind poisoned remnants. Back in the present, atop the tenement, Elias's numbness cracked just enough to remember Voss's rise. Now 31, Voss helmed Apex Fracking, their power a fortress of digital empires and political ties. They lounged in high rises overlooking the pit, where displaced families huddled in tents that smelled of mildew and despair, the ground slick with oily puddles that burned the skin on contact. Voss's asexuality was public now, a brand of untouchable purity, but Elias knew the hidden depth, a childhood in the same slums, scarred by abandonment, turning empathy to ice, making them capable of devouring what others cherished. Seeds of Elias's identity crisis sprouted here, in the wind-whipped silence. Transitioning had been his flight from the cage, testosterone sharpening his jaw, binding flattening his chest, but insomnia robbed him of rest, leaving him adrift in a sea of doubt. Was he truly male, or just a forged identity, like the art he mimicked in secret, painting fakes to survive? The revenge burned in him, hot and insistent, but it clashed with the slum's unspoken culture, community over vendetta, forgiveness in the face of shared suffering. Pursuing it would betray that, melt his wings before he even took flight. Yet, as the news report echoed in his mind, Lena Reyes's voice probing the unrest, her words sharp as a journalist's blade, Elias decided. He would hack and destroy Voss, using his arsenal, torture techniques honed in dark web forums, drone operation for surveillance, art forgery to mask his tracks. Resources waited, an explosive stockpile from shady contacts, terrorist connections whispering of bigger plays, promises of chaos in exchange for loyalty. Fear crept in as he descended into the slum's labyrinth, shadows twisting like labyrinthine myths from ancient tales. A child's cry echoed from the pit, an innocent, perhaps, caught in the crossfire of his rage. What if this flight ended in flames, consuming not just Voss, but everything he held dear? 6 months ago, in a dingy slum basement that reeked of solder and sweat, Elias developed torture techniques. Not physical at first, psychological, hacking minds like code, breaking them down layer by layer. He practiced on dummies, imagining Voss's face, whispers of pain echoing Icarus's screams as wax dripped from melting wings. But the identity crisis gnawed at him. Was this him, or the rage-forged mask he'd worn since the transition, a shield against the world's judgments? In the present, Elias forged alliances. First, the politician with conscience, Marcus Hale, a man in his 50s whose suits hid a slum-born dialect, clipped vowels, subtext of regret bubbling beneath every word. I fought fracking bills, kid, Hale said in a back-alley meet, the air thick with garbage rot and the distant hum of rigs drilling into the earth's wounded heart. But Voss bought the council. Their asexuality? A shield, makes him seem above it all. Hidden depth lingered in Hale's eyes, his conscience stemmed from losing his own child to polluted water, a secret guilt that fueled his aid, driving him to risk everything. They bonded over mythology, Hale quoting Daedalus's warnings of hubris, his voice low and grave, like a father cautioning a reckless son. The alliance formed, but complications struck, an innocent child involved. Scouting the pit with his drone, Elias hovered over the camp's sensory hell, feces mixed mud squelching underfoot, the acrid burn of chemical fire stinging eyes and throat, the laughter of kids masking the despair that clung to every breath. There, Voss's orphan niece, 8-year-old Mia, played in a tent, an unwitting pawn in Voss's PR image of the caring executive. Mia's involvement twisted Elias's gut like a knife. Revenge could orphan her further, betraying the slum's cultural code of protecting the vulnerable, the very fabric that had held him together during his darkest nights. Voss became aware something was wrong. In their high-rise, they sensed the hacks, subtle data leaks, like feathers falling from wings, one by one. Their fear humanized them briefly, a crack in the armor, but Elias pushed on, introducing the symbolic element. He tattooed Icarus wings on his arm, a motif recurring in notes and drone graffiti, "Fly too high, and melt." The ink burned his skin, a reminder of the cost, a promise of the fall to come. Preparation escalated with the first act of violence, mild at first, a hacked drone slashing a Voss convoy tire, causing a skid in the slum rain, blood from a guard's cut hand mixing with the downpour. Elias questioned his path once, staring at his reflection in a puddle that rippled like disturbed wax. Am I man enough for this, or just falling into the sea? Dark humor slipped in unexpectedly, as Hale joked over calms, Voss eats pets? Hell, with fracking prices, maybe they're onto something, cannibalism's the new green energy. Elias chuckled bitterly, a noir crack in the tension, a brief respite from the storm building inside him. Social commentary wove through their talks. Fracking's greed mirrored the 2010 Deepwater Horizon spill, Hale ranting about corporate Icaruses poisoning the Gulf, now our slums, leaving black death in their wake. Elias's insomnia worsened, the identity crisis deepening, flashbacks to pre-transition doubts flooded him, Whiskers's loss a catalyst for his male rebirth, a painful emergence from the cocoon of who he once was. Fear yielded to the edge of breakdown as he allied with the serial killer with code, Jax the Weaver Kane, a 40s enigma who killed only polluters, his code a twisted eco-justice. I weave fates like Arachne, Jax said in dialect thick whispers, subtext hiding his depth, a former fracker haunted by guilt, seeking redemption in blood. They planned hacks, but the child complication loomed, Mia's face on drone feeds, her innocent eyes piercing Elias's numbness like sunlight on wax. Target awareness peaked, Voss tightened security, their asexuality a facade cracking under pressure, revealing glimpses of the humanity they buried deep. Elias developed drone ops further, forging art to launder funds, faked masterpieces sold to terrorists for explosives, each brushstroke a lie that mirrored his own forged identity. The preparation built to a climax, Elias's fear morphing into a breakdown whisper, what if revenge melts me first, leaving nothing but ashes? Revenge initiated, hack and destroy. Elias launched the primary assault from a slum hideout, the air heavy with ozone from servers and the distant wail of pit sirens, a symphony of chaos. Using drone operation, he infiltrated Voss's network, destroying data empires, financials erased, fracking permits melted like Icarus's wings in viral leaks that spread like wildfire across the dark web. The motif recurred, hacked screens flashed mythological falls, a warning of hubris, feathers dissolving in digital flames. The second complication hit, an ally betrayed him. The red herring emerged, the idealistic journalist Lena Reyes, 35, whose probing reports seemed too convenient, her dialect a polished slum drawl hiding subtext of ambition that made Elias wary. But the true betrayer was Hale, the politician, whose conscience cracked under Voss's bribes, hidden depth, fear for his remaining family, echoing Daedalus's paternal warnings, driving him to sell out for protection. The first plot twist revealed itself, the gender transition. Amid the hack, as Elias's body trembled from insomnia, he confessed to Jax, the transition wasn't just his. Voss had once confided in a vulnerable moment, pre-sin, about their own suppressed desires for change, a non-binary facade over deeper gender flux. But Voss had eaten Whiskers to bury that shared vulnerability, a betrayal of kindred spirits in a world that punished difference. This twisted Elias's rage, revenge now betrayed their shared trans culture of resilience, the moral dilemma confronted head-on, in the slums, we lift each other, I can't burn that bridge without scorching myself. Allies were tested, Jax sacrificed, weaving a diversion kill on a Voss lackey, the second act of violence, escalating to a garrote body in the pit, blood pooling in mud that smelled of oil and decay, thick and sticky underfoot. Betrayal struck. Hale leaked Elias's location, forcing a chase through the camp's sensory chaos, screams echoing off tent walls, the metallic tang of fierce sweat mixing with smoke, fires crackling like cracking wings, threatening to consume everything. For a moment, the perspective shifted through the hack, a neural implant breach revealing Voss in their office, heart pounding, the asexuality a lie exposed in raw fear, humanity surfacing as they whispered to themselves, "I ate the cat to feel something, anything, in this void I've built." It showed their trauma from slum evictions, a scared child beneath the executive shell, but Elias, hacking in, saw it as weakness to exploit. The moral dilemma peaked. Elias questioned his path a second time, the breakdown hitting like a wave. This vengeance costs my soul, betrays our culture's forgiveness, turns me into the monster I hate. Allies fractured, Jax's code held firm, but Hale's sacrifice came too late, a redemptive death in the escalating violence that left scars on Elias's psyche. The execution built to chaos, the identity crisis fracturing Elias like brittle wax. Was he Avenger or fallen Icarus, doomed to plunge? The second plot twist unfolded. Everyone is an actor. In the final confrontation at the pit's heart, a bonfire-lit arena of desperation, smells of burning plastic and human waste choking the air, flames dancing like mocking gods, Elias cornered Voss. The third act of violence escalated brutally, explosives from his stockpile detonated rigs, a fiery inferno mirroring Icarus's sunplunge, bodies charred in the blaze, the heat searing skin and the screams piercing the night like shattered myths. Torture techniques applied, drones pinning Voss, psychological hacks replaying the pet-eating sin in endless loops, forcing them to relive the horror. But the twist unraveled. Jax, Lena, even Hale, who had faked his death, revealed it, all actors in an underground performance art collective, staging the entire saga to expose fracking's horrors. Voss was the director, their asexuality a role, the pet-eating a scripted sin to provoke real rage from Elias, drawing him into the play. Everyone's an actor, Voss confessed, subtext dripping with irony, hidden depths. The collective aimed societal change, but Elias's real pain was collateral, a tool for their grand reveal. The central theme climaxed. The cost of vengeance melted Elias's world, his wings burned to nothing. The moral dilemma resolved in acceptance. He embraced the betrayal of culture, but saw its folly, the hubris that had blinded him. In the camp's mud, amid the cries of the innocent child Mia, saved by Lena at the last moment, Elias hacked the collective's facade, destroying their digital veil, turning their performance against them. Society won in the end. The play went viral, sparking real protests, slums united, fracking halted, commentary on inequality triumphing over greed. In the epilogue, long-term consequences unfolded. Elias's rebirth came slowly, post-insomnia. As he aided the pit's rebuild, his identity crisis resolved in the warmth of community. Voss, exposed and broken, faded into obscurity. Society awakened, wings reforged in collective flight, rising from the ashes of personal vendettas.